So we're going to look over Gideon. We've been doing that for the past couple of weeks. We've talked about Gideon. We talked about him getting called by God. God calls him, and then we talked about, if you remember, the test that he gives God. 2 tests where the fleece, it needed to be dry at first with the dew all around it, and then it needed to be soaking wet with the ground all dry. And I might have that flip-flopped in the order of things, but he puts God to a test, and he's very unsure. And if we remember, Gideon is this guy who's not the cream of the crop here. He's not the best of the best. He's not the biggest and the strongest or the best looking. He doesn't have all these skills in front of him. There's one thing he does have. He has God calling him. So we're going to look at what it means when God calls you, when God calls me to do something. So each of us, we have our own tools. We have our own things at home. Some of us, we have hammers, we've got screwdrivers, and some of you might know exactly where the tools are. Some of you might not have never seen a tool in your life, but we know that we need tools. A phone could be used as a tool. I'm using a camera, and so there's all sorts of different tools out there. I know we all wish for more money. We all wish for more time, more resources, yada yada yada. We could go on and list all the things that we need, or that we think we need, to be successful. But what is it that we truly need? What is it that we really need to be successful? Let's look at it. Everywhere we turn, the church is under scrutiny. Unfortunately, today, your generation is growing up in a culture that's more hostile towards the church than accepting of it. We have so many valid reasons to not try, to give up, to hide, to quit. I don't know about you, but I'm just not built that way. Here is the part we need to understand. Neither is Jesus. Neither were the disciples, neither was Paul, neither were the many leaders, pastors, and believers who went before you and me. Excuses are like bad days. Sooner or later, everybody has one. Yet God does not tell us to hide away from the world, but to be ambassadors. None of us are exempt from this calling. Let's look at 2 Corinthians chapter 5, verses 18 to 20. The question will never be if you have something in your hand. The question will only be, what are you doing with what you have? You might have the excuse, but I can't sing, but I don't know a lot about the Bible. I've never prayed in public before. Awesome, great, fantastic. That's exactly what God wants. What you have at this moment is exactly what God gave you. And He wants you to use that. And how awesome is that? That God of all this wants you to use your gifts. We've been studying Gideon, and let's take a moment here and let's look at Judges chapter 7, 1 through 7. And this is going to pop up on your screen, and there's going to be a moment here where you're going to pause and read this so that I'm not kind of going through the whole thing. We're not wasting time on the video. So I want you to take that time right now and just pause and read Judges chapter 7, 1 through 7. It'll be on the screen. Make sure you pause it and read through it. So in the book of Judges, chapter 7, Gideon is preparing to go to battle. And at his side are thousands of soldiers. God then puts Gideon and his army through a series of tests to make sure that they are what they need to be. So he essentially gets rid of some clutter. The entire purpose of getting rid of the soldiers was to eliminate the things that Gideon thought he needed for victory. So God leaves you with exactly what you need. And it says in Philippians 4:13, with Christ all things are possible. So I want you to know this. Know who you are. Know that you are God's and that you are given exactly what you need, or you are being given exactly what you need. Maybe God's developing something in you so that he can use you later on. So don't get caught in the trap of thinking we have to have what others have to be used by God. Sometimes we think, oh, I need that gift. I need what they have in order to be successful. God has something in mind for you that is like designed and purposely made for just you. That it might not work for other people, but it works for you. So here's another moment where I'm going to need you to pause the video. We're going to look at Judges chapter 7, and we're picking right up where we left off, 8 to 18. So as it pops up on the screen, take that moment and read through it. Make sure you understand it. Don't just skim through. Don't just skip to the next part of the video. Read through this next part. So let me tell you, God does not need big numbers to win. All he needs are the people that will move when he calls them to. And really, he doesn't even need them, but he chooses to use them. So God and Gideon here empower these 300 men that they've selected down from 30,000. And they do this by doing 4 things. Now, these are going to pop up on your screen, but if you want, you can take notes. You can write this down, or just come back to the video and watch it again. But here's some of the 4 points. First, he gave them a promise. Whenever God gives a promise, he never fails on that promise. So he gave them a plan. That was the second one for us to kind of pay attention to. He gave them a plan. He split them up into 3 different groups with different tasks. And so that's something for us to know, is that we have the Bible, and that's something we can go off of and use. It's such a wonderful tool for us to have. So part of the plan is found in 1 Thessalonians 5:16 to 18. So the third point, or the third thing that he did, that God gave them or did for them, is he supplied them. He gave them horns and jars with torches and the right weapons for the job. Not the ones others thought they needed, but the ones that God wanted. You know, the reality is God never calls you where he will not equip you. Just know, going in, even if you do not see the tool in your hand, if God has called you to it, he will get you through it. He gave them a purpose. For Gideon and the Lord. Why is this significant? Why is that portion really important? Remember the dream that was interpreted, that Gideon would wipe out the armies of Midian? They had to know who was rolling into the camp and who was coming with him. In order to do well with what we have, we must unleash what we have. Let's take a look at Judges chapter 7, verse 18 to 25. Gideon turned those 300 men loose on the enemy. They pursued the enemy and brought back the fruits of the battle. That's my dream for you. It's to unleash you to pursue the enemy across borders and barriers. You know, it's my greatest joy to see lives recommitted to the Lord, and it's to see you step into the reality of God's plan for your life. At some point, Gideon had to let go of his soldiers and entrust them to do what he needed them to do. We will not grow and we will not do well with what we have if we do not release it. There will always be someone smarter. There's going to always be someone bigger, stronger, or more accomplished, someone that has more things. None of those things matter. When it comes to you using what God has given you and obeying his call, there's nothing else greater. And that's the bottom line. That's what you need to, if you're going to get anything from this lesson, that's what you need to get. So to close, I'd like to look at Matthew 25, verse 23. This parable teaches us that we can be faithful over the few things. God will move us to greater things. So today, as we kind of finish, if you're interested in taking that next step in your faith,
if you're wanting a little bit more than just coming and hanging out on Wednesdays, which is perfectly fine, but if you want to take that next step, I would encourage you to check out our L365 group and message me on either Instagram or Facebook, or talk to me on Wednesday if you are looking to maybe go a little bit further, a little bit deeper in what you're doing. If you're curious about this whole faith thing, again, I'd love to talk to you about it. Wednesdays, I'm always there, 6 to 8, and plenty of leaders there that you could talk to, whoever you're most comfortable with. And also, I'm on Instagram and Facebook. Guys and girls, make sure you're staying warm, and hopefully this was an encouragement, and I hope you enjoyed the little video I put together. I hope you guys have a great rest of the day. Peace out. Take care. See you next week at Smackin' SNL.